yesterday we started with a quick exponent review, talking about the rules, talking about how we're going to use them. Pretty straightforward. Today is the exact same thing, except now we're dealing with fractions. But there's no need to worry about dealing with the fractions because we got the calculators to deal with them. So, as we're checking out the review here again, it's up to you if you want to put steps over here that I'm going to do. If you weren't here yesterday, I'd absolutely suggest you do what I'm going to do because you don't have yesterday's yet. So, when we're multiplying, this is our power property, okay? We're going to, bless you, add the exponents. So if I get something that looks kind of nasty like this, like 5 to the 1/2 times 5 to the 3/2, check this out. Well, don't check out that graph. We don't need it. I'm not going to plug the 5 in. The only part I'm going to concern myself with is the exponent. And we've said this since the beginning of the year in here. If you're doing fractions, you need to put them in parentheses or bad things happen. So that is where this 2 is coming from. Just adding those two fractions together, and then if I wasn't sure, I could put 5 squared in my calculator. The reason I don't like putting the whole thing in right away is, when it's a variable as your base, you're not going to be able to do the whole thing in there. So we might as well get used to that. So, yesterday we did power to power. We see parentheses. We multiply the exponents. Same thing again. If I have 5/2 squared, so I have 5/2 times 2, not to the second power like you see it there. We don't want to do that. That's where this 5 is coming from. And then I can stick the rest in my calculator. Again, I don't want to get dependent on the calculator doing all the work because with variables I'm going to have to do some. If an exponent's on the outside, we're going to distribute. We're still going to multiply, but we're distributing that exponent through. So over here, you're like, okay, I put a 1/2 on each of those, but what the heck? Again, that's where the calculator comes in handy. If you want to do an exponent, reminder, maybe, there we go. There's my exponent button. 16 to the 1/2 is 4. Exponent. 9 to the 1/2 is 3. And then you just multiply the two numbers together. Hardy, I can put the whole thing in my calculator. I'm going to keep saying it 100 times. I don't care. I still want you to learn how this rolls this way, because if you don't, when you get into variables instead, you're going to be in trouble. Okay, with the negative exponents, we're going to flip them, because when we flip them, and again, that can be top to bottom of a fraction. That can be bottom back to top. They're interchangeable. And so here, the negative 1/2 means we flip it. And once we have it positive, 36 to the 1/2 is 6. That's where this is coming from. But we're going to put one more example in here with it, because I want you again to know if you have something weird like Ooh. Like 1/8 to the negative 1/3 will really get kooky here. So on this first one, top down to the bottom to become positive. Now this one, bottom up to the top to become positive. and I can see the difference. So they can go both ways. And that's kind of important to keep track of here. Division. Like I said, you've got a lot of this in general in your notes from yesterday. We're going to subtract the exponents. Typically, we just do numerator minus denominator, but we talked about how doing it with the biggest one is helpful. I think we can handle 5/2 minus 1/2, but just in case. 5/2 minus 1/2 is 2. That's where this is coming from. So it's all the same rules, it's just fractions don't make it quite as fun. Let's see here. More distributing of our exponent. We're still multiplying. So that 1/3 on the outside has got to go to both of these. And again, with it being numbers, we're just going to have to deal with getting it into our calculator here. There are some ways around this, but we're not quite there yet where I want to be messing with those. So 3 and 4 gets me to that. And our favorite, anything to the 0 power equals 1. All that stuff still equals 1. I'll even prove it. 4 to the 7/3 power to the 0. There it is, 1. So when you're doing some of these practice ones, again, I'm still going to look up top. Here I just need to add my exponents. I think we can do this one. Now, I don't want you leaving it like this, though. That's one thing I will say. Like, if you can reduce the fraction, 6/2 is 3, I do want you to go that far. But I can't put it in the calculator with the x's, so I've got to know the rules to be able to work that through. And so here, same thing. I have 3 to the 1/4 power, and then x to the 5/2 times 1/4. Now this gets us in an interesting situation. Because when I do that, I get a decimal. Typically, we don't do decimals with these. So if you get a decimal sometime, I would prefer that you just leave it with the exponent on there instead of going to what, 1.32, okay? But for our 5/2 times 1/4, your best buddy today, and I haven't written that down yet, I'm going to now though. Math, enter. That's going to take us from decimal to fraction. It's the greatest button ever on these calculators. That's as far as this one goes. I know that looks weird. It looks like it shouldn't be done, but it is. We don't get a whole lot of decimal-y things, though, so normally we're not going to have to worry about it. Let's see. Remember yesterday when we said big numbers don't play by exponent rules? Don't subtract the 12 and the 8. They're not exponents. Oh, we don't do decimals, though. Math, enter. Okay. So we just reduce the fraction. And then with these, we're going to subtract. So 5/6 minus 2/3. No decimals. Math, enter. And then we're going to do the same thing with y. Just subtract them. 7/3 minus 2/5. No decimals. Oofda, that's a crazy one. So I know that I'd mentioned yesterday, hey, try to do bigger minus smaller. You're like, well, how do I know that to know what I do? Here's the simple way. If you subtract your exponents doing numerator minus denominator and you get a negative, you know that the bigger one was the second one. Now you can always flip it, but that's how you know. Both of these I got positive answers right away. So I'm good. I don't need to put them anywhere else. Normally your answers will be on top of your fraction. I'll just kind of leave that at that. Ooh, our favorite. What's the numerator equal? Whole thing, 1. That's nice. We like that. So then I'm like, all right, so I got 1. X to the 1/3, okay. Oh, x to the negative 5/2. Okay. You have a choice here. I'll show you both ways, but they're both going to work. I can leave the x to the 1/3 here and then flip my negative exponent. Now I'm not done yet because there's still multiple x terms. So I'm going to subtract these now. So 5/2 minus 1/3. Math, enter. And I end up with x to the 13 over 6. Okay, that's one way to do it. You could, right at the start, you're multiplying. You could add those. That would work. 1/3 plus negative 5/2. Math, enter. Now, if you did it that way, you'd end up looking like this. You'd have 1 over x to the negative 13 over 6. But then you'd have to flip that up to the top. I get the same answer either way. So if I flip, I get here. If I add the exponents right away, I get to here and I have one more step. So most of the time, if you follow the rules, it doesn't matter what order you necessarily go in, you're still going to get to the right answer, which is nice. Okay. Last one. Any exponent on the outside, every single variable inside gets a little 1/4 today. So we're multiplying exponents. 3/2 times 1/4. Math, enter. So we have x to the 3/8. Then we got 3 times 1/4, which is 3/4. And this y, since it's just a 1 there, it just gets the 1/4. Now, that's an excellent first step, but I'm not done. Because even though there are no other x's, so our x is good where it's at, okay. Dividing, we're going to subtract. Keep it simple. Oops, except that's y. It was positive though, so it stayed up top. Almost made it through without screwing up. So here's the suggestion again, like I'd made on the front page when we were first getting started. When it comes to the practice, we are going to be on page 5 and 6. And my suggestion for you today is to just do the evens. Just roll the evens. We will come back and get the odds later. What's that? Did I screw up? Hang on a minute. Am I thinking ahead? I know what I'm thinking ahead to. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking backwards. Hang on. Okay. We'll do all of page 5. I'm thinking ahead to tomorrow already. Oh my gracious. Yeah. 5 we'll do all. Tomorrow we're going to split because it's a longer assignment. I got my days backwards. What the heck? So we'll roll there.